Welcome, everybody. This is the October 29th public hearing of the Charter Revision Commission. First item up is the roll call. We'll maybe go down the line, starting with Joe.
Here.
Chip Clark here.
Carl Dickens here.
Tyler Fairbairn here. Doug here.
Rick McQuaid
Rick
here.
McQuaid's here.
John
Levin here.
Sorry, I apologize.
And we have two online members, Ed Camacho
Yep, I'm here.
and Tanya Rhodes Small.
Yep, I'm here.
Next is, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of our initial meeting?
So
On Rick McQuaid, second?
There's no second.
It was right, forgot, no second, no second. All in favor of approving the minutes, or any comments on the minutes from the initial meeting? No. All in favor of approving the minutes of our initial meeting?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? Okay, that brings us to the public hearing portion. So this is a quick note on the format. So because we had a question about this, and this is the opportunity for anybody who's interested in having any kind of comments on the charter or how government is conducted here in Norwalk. This is only our second meeting. There have been no proposed revisions or changes at this point. So this is just really to hear from the residents of Norwalk what they think are priorities during this charter revision process. We have another statutory public hearing later in the process after we've had a chance to discuss things and propose some revisions, at which point there'll be things for people to comment on, and we will perhaps look into having another one between now and May. People are always welcome to submit comments through the Charter Revision website on the city webpage. There's an email link that gets aggregated here by a city staff member, and then those things are all put together and put in front of the commission members at some point. I believe what we did last time too was to assemble all the comments and make them available for people to review so they could see what had been submitted. So this is just the first of a number of opportunities for people to offer comment throughout the process. Do we have a sign up over there for the folks who are here in person? Okay. Listen, a couple other people have trickled in. We'll gladly hear from everybody, and then after we hear from all the folks who are here in person, we will go to online if we have anybody who's there who wants to participate. So thank you very much. We will run through, and I think it was a 3-minute limit is what we said for comments. Our first public participant, Lisa Brinton.
9306.
We'll make that work. We'll make it work.
If Fred loses.
Good evening, guys. Lisa Britton, 19 Shorefront Park, Chair of the local Independent Town Committee and founder of Save Norwalk Neighborhoods. I want to thank you all for stepping up to serve. This is time-consuming, reviewing, discussing, and updating the historical language or considering any structural changes to the charter. I want to thank those members who served in 2023 on the commission and updated the 1913 document. I voted yes and told everyone I knew to do the same once the 4-year term proposal had been removed. Another item pertaining to mayoral powers that was removed from the 1913 document, and I'll paraphrase, was the authority, some of this funny language, with force and strong hand when necessary to suppress tumults, riots, unlawful assemblages, or enter any house, building, or enclosure, wherein he may have reasonable cause to suspect dissolute or disorderly persons be assembled, and to disperse immediately or be committed to the city prison. I'm sure glad that power doesn't exist today, or I'd be in the clink. But I support revision measures that advance democracy and accountability. And contrary to public opinion, I am not wedded to any particular mechanisms that do this. And I even see the merit in a 4-year mayoral term one day, but not before voter representation and check and balance measures are strengthened in the charter. Some may think my opposition to the 4-year term is due to a grudge between the mayor and myself, and this is not the case. Every Norwalk mayor I've personally witnessed, from Moshe to Esposito, has also had a strong-handed style. And why? Because it's in the charter. Power sits with the mayor. Control of the budget and selection of every member of any of the 50-odd boards and commissions and the policies set forth are controlled by the mayor's office. The council can approve or disapprove with an up or down vote, but need I remind folks of the political fallout for challenging a mayor? Just ask Manny, Nick, Heidi, George, John. The list is long and distinguished, and the same holds true if it was the other party in charge. Switching to the council, currently members sit on multiple subcommittees where policy is crafted. They attend meetings or events 3 to 4 times a week. Some complain about being their workload, some want to be paid. Yet cities like Bridgeport, Danbury, New Haven, and Stanford all have larger councils. Every leafy town has larger RTMs. Greenwich has 230. My point, most Connecticut municipalities seem to have.
2 minutes, 30 seconds.
All right. Most Connecticut municipalities seem to have charters with more per capita and diverse representation in the legislative branch than Norwalk does. 166 out of 169 towns have a majority cap. Many municipalities have either a more inclusive budget process, a separately elected finance board, or non-political city manager. In closing, with concerns at an all-time high nationally over democracy, extremism, and executive power, my hope is that this commission focuses on increasing neighborhood
3 minutes.
representation and check and balance in the mayor's office. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Next up, we have Fred Wilms.
Fred, you can pick up where she left off.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Fred Wilms. I live at 6 Westview Lane in Norwalk. I'm here speaking in my capacity as chair of the Norwalk RTC. We, as an organization, would like to recommend for your consideration 3 proposals. The first is in the area of minority representation. As you're aware, minority representation is widespread throughout many towns and cities in Connecticut. Only a few don't have it. We actually do have it in Norwalk for boards and commissions where it does not apply, or for the Common Council and the Board of Ed. And so we would like you to consider minority representation for those 2 bodies. Obviously, if it were to be scrapped, then there would need to be a structural change to those 2 bodies, namely the district seats. One thing I do want to point out is it may be harder to do that for the council, but however, as many of you know, the Board of Ed did have minority representation until just about 25 years ago, when there was a charter revision back in 2000. So that might be an easier lift to consider of the 2 bodies. The second is in the area of special elections. I believe earlier this year, 2 District C council members resigned early in their terms, and they were town committee appointees as the charter calls for. What we'd like to propose is that if someone vacates either from the Board of Ed or council more than a year from the expiry of their term, that be filled by a special election, and then town committee appointees be reserved for vacancies within a year of the election. And then finally, to piggyback on what Lisa talked about, I think expanding the size of the council would be an excellent idea. I know Stanford has, I believe, close to 40 members, and we're at 15. I think increasing the council size to maybe 20 or even 25 might allow for greater voices and more diversity. Finally, to sum up on getting back to minority representation. Right now, there's 1 Republican on the council and none on the Board of Ed. And that's, of course, that's the way and she was on the Republican line. So anyway, our mayoral candidate got 45% of the vote. And so clearly there was a significant amount of support for a Republican candidate for mayor of Norwalk. And so we believe that having minority representation would allow for more checks and balances.
2 minutes, 30 seconds.
More diversity of opinion. And we believe that allowing that would produce essentially better outcomes for the city and for our community. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Fred. The next up on our in-person list is Elsa. Elsa Bachowski, thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Elsa Peterson Obachowski. I live at 41 East Avenue, Norwalk. I'm the chair of the Board of Commissioners of the First Taxing District, but what I have to say tonight should not be interpreted as an official statement on behalf of the board. Norwalk's charter has a section on the taxing districts, including descriptions of their geography. It has been commented that these descriptions should be made more precise, for example, using meets and bounds instead of the current less precise language. In the process of reapportionment of the common council districts, which is ongoing this fall, it has also been commented that the taxing districts should clean up their boundaries and that any change in these boundaries would need to be enacted through legislation in the Connecticut General Assembly. I would like to say that I believe the first taxing district is open to discussing how this housekeeping or cleanup could be done. However, a major consideration is existing infrastructure. In our case, water distribution lines, and in the case of the second and third taxing districts, also electricity grids. Changing the boundaries of a taxing district could mean that an in-district customer would fall on the outside of the new boundary and need to be reclassified as an out-of-district customer or vice versa. I'm not sure what mechanism may exist for handling such a change. This is just one of several questions that could arise. I would like to recommend that all the taxing districts discuss this topic together so that we can be aware of the challenges, advantages, and possible obstacles involved and reach consensus on how best to move forward. I can also offer that there's an organization called the National Special Districts Coalition, which First Taxing District belongs to, that may be a resource in this matter. Thank you for convening this public hearing and for your work.
Thank you, Elsa. So that's it for the sign up sheet. Is anybody else here in person who would like to comment who was not on the sheet? No, if not, we'll move on to the online attendees. I better call them up as they appear, and I'm not sure who was there when. I guess we'll get through everybody. So the first one is going to be Tanner Thompson.
Hello, am I coming through?
Yes.
Yep, we got you, Tanner.
Excellent. Yes, my name is Tanner Thompson. I live at 16 Hillside Place, number K5, on Golden Hill. Shout out there to Jim Clark. Jim, good to see you.
Hi, Tanner.
I want to speak today about representation on the council. I've done a fair amount of work with council members, both in a more official capacity as the chair of the Bike Walk Commission and now a member of the Bike Walk Commission, and also in a more independent advocacy role. But obviously today I'm just representing my own opinions. But I want to talk about the council. I share the perspective of a lot of people who I think are here who see that for better and for worse, depending on the context, there is the council is pretty disproportionately representing mostly Democrats. I've worked with a lot of good Democrats and I've valued the work that they do, but I think that in the longer term, it is valuable to have a more diverse representation in terms of parties on the council. In the longest term, I would like to see initiatives around the country to bring this kind of representation to elected bodies around the country, and ultimately move past the two-party system that's pretty polarizing and really doing a number on our society. Obviously, that will take a long time, but I think that one way that we get that going is at the local level by introducing reforms at the local level that encourage a stronger diversity of parties at the local level. So I'm open to, I would support, there's lots of different solutions out there. I'm going to talk about one in particular that I think would work, but I would support any initiative that aims to get more party diversity. Specifically, I want to talk about proportional representation by party. I spent a couple years living in Germany. This is what they use in the Bundestag, the nationwide legislature in Germany. In Germany, everybody has 2 votes for the Bundestag. One to vote for a representative of the district where they live, and another one to vote for a party. And so there's like 300 districts, and they all elect a representative via the typical first past the post. And then the second vote, the party vote, goes to proportional representation for another 300 or so seats. And obviously this is a ton of seats. I don't want to see 600 seats on the Common Council, for sure. But the takeaway here is that what they do with these party votes is that these second set of 300 seats are allocated proportionally based on the parties that get votes, and any party that gets above a 5% threshold gets a at least one seat, and it's allocated proportionally based on how much of the vote each party got. I'd love to see something like that brought to Norwalk. I think even if we kept the council fixed, we could do this by taking the at-large seats that are currently just first past the post and assign them via proportional representation instead. I think it would be more effective if we had more seats allocated this way. It would be a lot more granular.
Thank you, Tanner. Time is up.
Tanner, thank you very much. And for Tanner, or for anybody else who's online, who's not able to get everything in 3 minutes, please feel free to send us a follow-up through the website. So if the folks who are online, if the attendees who are online would like to say something, please raise your hand, just so we can kind of distinguish between who's looking to participate and who's just watching the meeting. Up next is Diane Cece.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. And thank you all for serving. I'm just kind of have some things scribbled down. I wasn't quite prepared for tonight, but I understand we can continue to send public comment in via email, which I'll look to do. But one of the things about this public hearing, I actually want to address the public hearing as part of whatever can be done in the charter. I think tonight may be a good example. I think we really need to look at this 3-minute rule. And instead of having something hard and fast, we should consider going back to having it be the chairperson's discretion in terms of based on the topic and the number of attendees, et cetera. Especially when they're often in Norwalk, the public hearings are very lightly attended. And I think if people have something to say, you should give some discretion. I would also say, and this is part of the reason I'm not prepared tonight, is that I think public hearings shouldn't be held any earlier in the city than 7 p.m. Given commuting times and people dealing with children and dinner and elderly parents, et cetera. And then in regards to public hearings as well, I think that the city needs to do a better job about posting public hearings and providing the necessary information for people to understand what the hearing is about and whether or not they want to participate. I think executive summaries of what the topic is would be a good thing, and maybe staff to provide also pros and cons of anything that's requiring a decision of the city would be helpful to the public. It would also be helpful to the public if public hearings were more prominently noted on the city's website instead of just in the legal notices, which most people don't read. And in the interest of space and money, I understand the legal notices can't possibly cover the the comprehensive nature of public hearings. I suggest that we better utilize the website technology in order to make people aware of public hearings. We've long suggested having a scroll on the city website homepage that would kind of scroll along the upcoming public hearings for the next, say, 30 days or 15 days. And then people could click on that and go to a link to learn more about it. In terms of departmental things or the city government, one second, sorry. I also agree that the
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
The size of the council needs to be increased due to the number of committees and the nature of the work. I think we should go from at least 15 to 20. And I also think that when we do that, or maybe even larger, but I also think that we need to revisit the committees themselves and possibly add now an information and technology committee that's separate from the others, and an energy and environmental committee as well.
Thank you, Diane Cece. Your time is up.
All right, Diane, thank you very much. Let's see what we have up next. Diane Lauricella.
Good evening, Chairman and members of this robust body. My name is Diane Lauricella. I'm following up. I agree with everything that Diane Cece said. We have said this before in the previous charter revision as members of the Coalition for Newark Neighborhood Associations over the years. Tonight, I just wanted to begin a list, and I will forward more, of things that I would like to see this commission take up seriously. The first has to do with the council, the structure, and the compensation. The time has come for this important body to have an expansion to at least 21, 22. Of course, it would have to be an odd number. But I do think my reason is for the fact that way, I feel that the council members would have the time to do more of their own background research because they would be assigned fewer committees. I also feel that you should be considering a 4-year term, but with term limits for the council. If you're going to give and consider a 4-year term for the mayor, but with term limits, then I believe the council structure should also include 4 years with term limits. I do believe for board commissions and agencies, the time has come for gender equity percentage based on the last census tract that was done. As you know, they're done every 10 years. I believe 50% plus of this city is inhabited by women. And I do believe that is not represented on several important bodies of appointed bodies, as well as the elected bodies is a different thing, but the appointed bodies, including this body, does not represent enough women on them. And I think we have good things to say and do our homework. I do think you should look at minority representation. I do believe there needs to be a more focus on sustainability and environmental. The mayor once had me help him put together the mayor's energy and environmental task force that only lasted about 1.5 years due to the leadership of it, as well as the lack of commitment. I lastly think all public participation sections, there should be public participation sections in all boards, commissions, including the Board of Estimate. I agree with Ms. Cece in discussing that 3-minute rule. Last time you had your meeting, I thought it was quite rude that whoever is doing
2
your
minutes and 30
comment,
seconds.
he should not cut people off, Mr. Chairman, in the middle of their sentence. I think you should let people finish their sentence. We are all adults and we want to be courteous to each other. So it was well worth my time to spend on that. Also, lastly, elected Board of Estimate people should be explored. Thank you, and please take my thoughts seriously.
Okay, thank you, Diane. So if you have anybody else online here. So we have a couple other number of other people online. I'm not sure if any of those are looking to participate or if they're just observing the meeting, but if you are online on Zoom right now watching the meeting and you would like to participate remotely, can you please raise your hand? Raise your hand through Zoom, of course, so that we can see who's looking to participate. If we don't have anybody raising their hand, we will wrap up the public participation portion. I don't think we have anybody new here with us. No, I think that's going to be it.
Carl. I just have a point. I see Attorney Mednick is in his seat because it may come up again somewhere along the line, but could you explain, Steve? I don't think that a charter commission can touch term limitations. I think that's only done at the state level, the General Assembly. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was going to, Mr. Chair, if I may answer the commissioner. Please. I was going to raise that at the end of the public hearing because I don't think it's, I think it's good for members of the public who come here on term limits. There's not a charter commission in the state of Connecticut that I've counseled over the last 25 years where this issue of term limits did not come up the first night. And I try to make it clear at the first night that there is no statutory authority for local charters to limit the terms of office for elected officials.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Carl, for the question.
Yeah, that is important. That's something we discussed last time, and it's something that came up often. It's good to have that out there early on. Everybody who comments can ask for that. And it's just something that we're not allowed to do. It's just something that we can't build into this. So if any of the other commission members have anything they wanted to ask or add, we can relative to the public participation, public hearing portion, we can do that. Otherwise, we are going to adjourn the public hearing, and then we're going to continue with the special meeting of the commission.
I would only like to thank everybody for the public comments, and I agree personally with the 3-minute time limit. I don't think that's enough time. But I do like the fact that we're accepting email with other suggestions, so we can go through those and look at those and look at items that are a little further in depth than somebody can do in 3 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will make that, when we have enough of those, we'll put those together and put them on the website at some point. We did receive, I received an email from somebody who wanted to encourage minority representation on the council and other elected positions. And I believe the city has not yet received any comments through the portal. So the only thing was that particular message. Unless anyone has anything else, Doug?
I'd like an ask if possible, if we could suspend our rules, just to allow anybody who spoke an additional 3 minutes, since there's very few turnout. I mean, you really wasted an opportunity to bring everybody out and not hearing enough from public. I know everybody kind of rushed. So I don't know if there's any other items.
No, and we don't have any other items for the public participation before we move on to the next.
Right.
Under Mason's rules, we can do that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
I asked him, you might be.
I would agree with.
I make a motion to suspend the 3-minute rule to allow those who've already spoken or have not spoken.
Any opposition to that? No. That's fine with me.
Lisa, you got some more stuff to add?
I'll email it to you guys.
Okay.
Just in case. I figured.
That works. Let's see if any of the, if anyone online would like to, Tanner has his hand back up. Tanner, another one?
Hi, thank you. Really appreciate the additional couple minutes. I'll try not to waste it. I just want to flesh out this kind of concrete idea that I had. I think I already kind of gave the argument in the general case, in the abstract case, for why we need proportional representation. But in Norwalk, this could take a couple of forms. But the way I would suggest is starting with the 5 at-large seats and switching those to proportional representation. That would require giving everybody voting an extra question on the ballot, asking them to vote for a party, as I described. I guess when I prepared these remarks, I didn't realize that there was such an appetite for expanding the size of the council. So I was kind of working within the 15-member constraint. So I was going to suggest that within that constraint, we would go down to 1 representative per district, and then we'd have 10 that would be elected via proportional representation. And then you'd really only need about 10% of the vote for any one party in order to ensure that that party gets a seat on the council. But if we're looking to go into the 20 or 25 range, then obviously that allows for more flexibility. Maybe we could keep the 10 per district seats, 2 per district, or we could mess with the districts and have more districts that would be more granular. I think there's advantages to that. And then the additional seats that we add could be allocated via proportional representation. So yeah, that's my concrete proposal. I'll yield my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanner. See if we have any of the other online attendees.
I'm gonna need to see the transcript of his comments. It was hard for me because of the speaker. It was hard.
Yeah,
Not him speaking, but the speaker.
No, absolutely. It's and I think for anybody who's online, we would encourage you to, both because of the brevity of the initial 3 minutes and because it's a little challenging to hear online at times, please do follow up with an email. It gives us a chance to kind of dig into your suggestions a little more. If anybody else. Hand in the audience, Lisa.
I'll make it brief. But
Sure.
Just an observation here.
I'm not time constrained. I really do appreciate what all of you guys are doing in terms of stepping up to what is a very tedious document of updating something that's 100 years old. And having been through this in 2016 and 2023, the consensus, I'd like to focus on what everybody seems to agree or what people want to do in terms of where we are as a nation, where we are as a city. Representation in our democracy is where, winner take all, and Tanner's alluded to this. To the degree we can improve representation, I know that the business community was driving a 4-year term to brings more stability and consistency, and I get that. Not having to do this stuff every 2 years would be really nice. But I think if that sacrifices voices or more representation, like I said, 51%, someone once said 51% shouldn't entitle someone to 100% of the power. And I think in a community like Norwalk, social media pages, Facebook pages, if folks had thought they had genuine representation amongst the various, political spectrum, I think it would cut down on probably a lot of the activism that needs to happen if people thought they had a voice. And I think, it's something that we're seeing going on in our nation right now. And like I said, you hear it in different forms, whether it's minority party representation or majority cap or proportional representation. And like I said, I'm not wedded to any particular mechanism you guys come up with. And it's going to be a tedious and laborious exercise, but anything that can improve the representation where people feel that they've got a voice rather than the super majorities, I think would go a long way for our city and making it a better place in terms of just more diverse ideas. There will still often be a majority vote, but like I said, other people will feel that their voice has been heard. 3 minutes at the podium isn't enough for 45% of us that maybe think things slightly differently, not completely differently, but just a little bit of a tweak. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Lisa. Fred?
Yeah, thank you again. Just one thought came to mind in terms of where a community can benefit from having multiple voices serving in government. When I served in the state legislature in 2017, the legislature was essentially tied between Democrats and Republicans. And it was because of that tie that the legislature ended up putting in what's called the fiscal guardrails. And we keep hearing about that a lot. And what those things did, or what they're still doing, because they've been extended again, is they've kept the state solvent. And we went from being in a severe fiscal crisis to now a situation where there's budget surpluses and there's excess cash and there's paying down of debt and liabilities. And so my only point there, and this is in relation to minority representation, is that anything we can do to have a situation where there's more voices at the table with different perspectives, it leads to better outcomes versus having any one party or any one group, whether it's Democrat, Republican, whoever, essentially speaking to themselves in an echo chamber. So that's the final point that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you again, Fred. See, check to see if we have anybody online that wanted to speak again. Doesn't appear so. Anything else from the commission members before we close the public hearing? Steve, Steve, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to just say, because I think that Mr. Thompson's testimony and the Chair Wilm's testimony and others were very heartfelt. I just want to point out that with regard to election alternatives, for example, the proportional representation idea that Mr. Thompson raised, I haven't heard anything about ranked choice, but ranked choice is a very popular theory that's developing around the country. And your Secretary of the State from Norwalk is currently looking at these alternatives at the state level. It's like the term limits. If there's no express grant of authority, we don't have the ability to change the system of elections. There are things you can do within the construct that you have, and when we get to that, we will talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about it at the next meeting. But right now, we have no authority to move toward a proportional representation system or a ranked choice system or any other alternate form of systems. Minority party representation is available for elected officials. It's used in many of our communities throughout the state to provide some representation in the big cities. It would allow for representation of the Republican Party in the smaller towns. It allows for representation by Democrats in those boards of selectmen and councils in the other communities. So I just wanted to point out as a public, public information that we are very limited in terms of what we can do with regard to the methodology of how you elect people.
Thank you, Stephen. I think that is really important too, and I think we did a fairly good job of that the first time around, but you know, in order to keep things focused, I think there's certainly validity in having conversations about how things work, but I think in order to maximize the little time we have doing this, kind of critical to keep that focused on things we're actually allowed to do rather than things that would in some other scenario be the ideal way to conduct local government. So we will I think maybe continue to make that known to the public as much as possible that you know what we can and cannot do with respect to the suggestions we get. John, did you have something?
Yeah, quick question for Steve Mednick. You've made it clear that there is no statutory authority to impose term limits at the municipal level. I'm wondering though, of Connecticut's, 169 towns, is there any municipality that has perhaps through special act been able to have term limits?
I'm not aware of any special act term limit towns. I am aware of a couple of communities that have adopted term limits in their charters. If they were ever challenged, they would be invalidated. I think Wilton has term limits, if I'm not mistaken, that were placed in their charter. I came across this a few years ago when I was in Middletown, gave the same statement I just did tonight. And the next day somebody called me up on, Mr. Mednick, Wilton has term limits. And I called the town attorney and he said, oh, well, I wasn't at the meeting and they didn't understand that you need to have an express grant of authority. They thought that the law was silent, you could do it. So I'm not aware of any special act towns with term limits. And so I think it would require, Bristol has term limits as well. I did an opinion indicating that they should be invalid. The mayor came out in favor of taking the provision out of the charter, and she lost her next re-election campaign. But they still have their term limits. I don't know if anybody's ever left during a term because of the term limits, and I don't know if anybody's ever challenged them. But those would be invalid. I believe strongly that they would be invalidated.
So that's a very interesting addition. So what I hear you saying is that a municipality can have in its charter term limits, which
that's not what I said.
Which would not be enforceable under state law, but would clearly, if they were in the charter, have, I guess, some level of moral authority or some, if it's.
I don't think that's what. That's not what I gathered from that.
Okay, then please clarify. You're saying that Wilton.
There's no moral authority in adopting a law that is not valid. Those two communities adopted laws that are misleading to the public and not enforceable. And my general recommendation, you could do what you want and the voters can pass it if they'd like. But I think it's unfair to the voters to adopt provisions in a charter that would be based on advice of counsel, and I'm not the only one, would be subject to significant legal challenge.
Understood. Without obviously making it, completely transparent to the voters that that would be the case.
Well, I don't know that we would want to put anything in. We wouldn't want to make any suggestions for origin for something that would be legally invalid. I mean, you could put in whatever you want, I suppose, right? But then if somebody challenges it, now the city's exposed to a lawsuit and you lose because you don't have the authority to do it. It just seems like
possibly.
Why would we even consider that?
I've just heard Attorney Mednick describe 2 towns that have done exactly that.
2 towns that have done something that is illegal, not enforceable. I don't think we want to get in the business of having so little regard for the law that we pass, that we put something in a charter that we know or have very good reason to know is illegal.
Right.
I agree.
So generally I would agree with you, but I think that it is interesting that 2 towns have done exactly that, presumably with advice of counsel, knowing that it is not enforceable.
Can't presume that.
Well, one of the towns, as I indicated, Commissioner, I don't think you listened to what I said. I was
Okay.
pointing out, you asked me a specific question, I gave you a specific answer. I also pointed out that the town attorney for one of the communities made it clear that he believed that the provision was invalid. The chair of the Charter Commission, who was an attorney, but he was a bankruptcy attorney, very well-respected bankruptcy attorney in Hartford, but in Wilton. I asked him why they did it. He said they never got outside advice and the Corp Council was not providing advice. And they just felt that if the law was silent, they had the ability to do it. No one told them that Wilton is not a sovereign. Remember the discussion we had 2 weeks ago. And I hope everybody remembers that. You're not a sovereign. You don't have the ability to do something because
Yes.
you want to do it. You only have the ability to do those things that you're directly authorized to do. So those two communities, and there's at least another, I can't think of which one it is, another small town that has those provisions, did it ultra virus. I would never have advised them to do so. And it's highly likely that they were not getting a lot of discerning legal advice.
Yes.
Or they
Okay,
just
that-
went with the flow.
That is useful perspective. Now I'm hearing Wilton did it, but they did it without knowing what they were doing.
That is what he said.
They did it, they know what they wanted, they didn't understand the law and the proper authority that they had, is the way I would frame it.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened in Bristol when they adopted theirs very substantially in the teens of this decade, of this century. But I do know, and there was a very, very virulent group of people who were quite upset. And it had major political implications. There were term limits because every Democrat, including the mayor and the entire Democratic Council, lost because they were raising questions about the term limit provision. All they did was state the obvious legal authority, but in that case, the crowd threw them all out. The provision is still in the charter, but I believe it's unenforceable.
Okay, understood. And just as a side note, there are unenforceable provisions within state constitutions that are in violation of the US Constitution, and yet those provisions remain and they are unenforceable. Understood.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Rick.
Yeah, you know, I've been around and see a lot of charters in Norwalk crash and burn. And this council chose to find someone from the outside, someone I feel is actually an expert on charter revisions, to work with us, and that's Attorney Mednick. You know, I think we should take some of the guidance on the legal end of things that he tells us. And if it's something that we shouldn't be doing, or probably should not even consider doing, I think we should at least take his lead, because for all the years that we tried to do charters on our own in Norwalk, like I said, we crashed and burned many times. So I would encourage us as a group to at least follow the lead of the person that the council has hired to work with us to get it right. So I would agree.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to, John, assume your position. It seemed as though that was headed down the path of, well, we could do it and hope no one calls our bluff. But
So actually, I'm really, because I'm new to this process and I'm new to charter revision for the most part, I think it's useful to gain this information and this perspective. And these are I think they're good questions and worth asking. And it really helps to flesh out, what we're doing. And I really greatly appreciate having Steve Mednick here to, with a vast amount of experience and knowledge and wisdom to help guide us through this process.
yeah, absolutely. All right, anything else at the public hearing portion of this evening's meeting? If not, is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to.
Oh, sorry. We have somebody online. Tyson Canavari.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Tyson.
Hi, Tyson Canavari, Esquire Road in Norwalk. Thank you for the opportunity. Are we able to talk about language that's in the proposed revision?
We've not proposed any revisions yet. There's the existing charter, and that is what we're kind of seeking input on. So if you have any input on the existing charter, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I own Signature Landscaping in Norwalk, and I just have a little bit of a problem with the language in there on leaf blowers. I mean, some of the language in here is a little silly. I mean, backpacks cause heart disease and cognitive failure. I mean, you know, where did they come up with these things? There's been no scientific evidence presented at all by the city on this.
I think
And,
that's the Can I ask what section
Yeah.
of the charter?
Tyson, I think you're talking about the ordinance.
Those are in ordinance, not in
Yeah.
the charter.
Yeah, so this is the charter, which was a kind of separate and apart from the leaf blower issue.
Okay, so this is part of it though, isn't it?
No.
No,
No.
not part of the charter.
Okay,
It's a law the legislative body passed,
Correct.
which that authority comes because of the charter.
yeah,
But the charter doesn't have
Charter gives
anything
them the
specific
authority
to
to
leaf
pass all
blowers.
ordinances, but that's where it stops.
Yes.
The ordinances are by elected officials.
okay. All right. Am I able to comment on the way, maybe something that could be done better in the future or Basically,
Related to
that's-
the charter or kind of-
well, I just think meetings in general at City Hall is that people should have more interaction with you know, members of the council, members of all the committees. It's just when you go in and you raise your hand, you're allowed 3 minutes. You're told to sit down and they say thank you, and that's the end of it. I mean, sometimes maybe things should be open to a little bit more dialogue.
No, absolutely. We've heard from a couple other people tonight who thought that we could extend things past 3 minutes. So certainly something for us to consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because I joined in late, so I apologize.
Oh,
But thank
no,
you for
you're
your
fine.
time and thank you for the work you do.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
in, Tyson. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Let's see if we have any other last call online. I think that's going to be it. I'm sorry, was someone else saying something before we had the last speaker? Or we had the motion to adjourn? Apologize. We had the motion to adjourn.
Or public hearing.
The public hearing.
Hearing.
Yes. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're adjourning the public hearing at 7:20. So at this point, we're now going to call to a special meeting to order of the Charter Revision Commission. At 7:20, roll call. We have all the same groups still here. We are not meeting with the elected and appointed officials this evening, so I mean, we've already covered several things during the kind of the tail end of the public hearing, but I wanted to do two things. We were going to discuss possibly finding a date for additional meetings. So after this meeting this evening, our next Charter Revision Commission meeting is not until November 19th. I thought it might be helpful if we could try to find a date between now and the 19th, certainly with the election in mind, perhaps after that, certainly after that, which is a date after the election where we could get together and discuss some priorities and scheduling issues and things like that.
What
So
about the 12th?
Can I just say, Mr. Chair, my time is limited. I just was going through the calendar to 2 days, the week after the election, the 13th or the 14th, which is a Wednesday or Thursday. The 12th, I have a meeting with your council where they're passing redistricting, and Monday's Veterans Day, but I'm clear both on the 13th and 14th, if one of those days works for you.
I should be able to make one of those work. Jim, yes. Carl seems like he's okay with that. Joe?
Should be.
November 13th.
13th or 14th, if there's one that's better for you than another.
Either.
So far, so good. Moving down the line on this side, Doug.
The election's over.
I'm good.
I can't guarantee that.
Hopefully.
Okay, John, is it one of those better than the other for you?
No, they're both excellent.
All right, Steve, do you have a preference?
Either's fine for me.
All right, why don't we say,
The 13th works best for me. My birthday's on the 14th. I'd rather not spend it here.
that's, Ed, that's a very
Oh,
reasonable.
We'll have to bring cake to the meeting on the 13th.
Celebrate with
What's that?
We'll bring cake to the meeting.
Drinks are on you, Ed.
All right, fair enough. That's, I can do that.
With that information in mind, I would recommend we do November 13th at 6:30. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I won't be.
Excellent, thank you. And you know, at that meeting, what Tyler and I thought was the kind of discussion that Commissioner Levin raised this evening is the kind of thing we could have some preliminary talks about issues that you've heard this evening, which are small issues, but there's a lot of big stuff in there, and we could talk a little bit about, I didn't mean to poo-poo the talk on procedure. There are a lot of different alternatives you could look at that would be beneficial to public participation, even within the construct that we have today. So it give us an opportunity, give you an opportunity to have your first roundtable discussion of what you've heard thus far and things that you want to bring to the table as well. So I thought it would be helpful even before the mayor and the council came before the body to try to get a meeting in there and keep some momentum going. So thank you for doing that.
Quick question on the 13th, same starting time, 6:30 or
I
so?
was thinking 6:30.
Consistency.
Right, leave it at 6:30.
6:30
6:30, you said?
6:30 on the 13th. I suppose we would have to double check that that this is available. I will check with Esther or whoever, Irene, make sure we can get in here.
You might want to check when you do that with what we were talking about
Second Wednesday, month,
something's gonna
P&Z
go on in
public
here.
hearings, yeah?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, I will.
They do it online.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I suppose we could, try to find another room here. I know we had a couple last time where we met downstairs. If this room was occupied, if it's just the,
101.
no more than 10 of us.
Is 101 open?
101 won't be open until after the 23rd.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Okay, well, we'll try. I mean, I suppose if we had the meeting.
Any on the first floor on that side but you have conference rooms on the second.
What about where the board meets, the Board of Ed?
Yeah, that's right next door. They could.
If we had to do it exclusively online, we could, right? I would prefer not to, but I mean, if we're setting
Yeah,
that date, if we don't have another choice.
I think we find, see if this room's available. If it isn't,
Okay.
we just move.
Yeah, right. I will get on that.
And let's not forget to change the notification for public to see too, because now it was in Nancy today about meetings, I think first and third, and I don't know where else it is. So I mean.
Yeah, well, we'll keep that schedule, but we'll be sure to notice this one. I think it's 24 hours, Steve. Do we have to give, no, we need to give at least.
It's just 24 hours, but it's a special meeting, so I would try to get it out as soon as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The more time, the better. So after that, and I think everybody has these dates on their calendar from our last time, but we're going to meet on December 3rd at 6:30 and then December 17th. And then that was as far as we gotten. Steve, is that something, I mean, as far as filling out the rest of the schedules, that may be something we talk about on the 13th?
We can talk about that, yeah. I mean, I think I've already kind of laid out what I think the schedule would be going all the way through to May. So we could talk about that and get that ready. We technically have to file sometime in December, early January to set them up as regular meetings. So it doesn't hurt to do it as early as possible. That's certainly another housekeeping issue we can talk about as well. And I can talk to you a little bit because I don't know if I did this, Tyler, Mr. Chair. I can talk a little about the members, Rick, Carl, and yourself know that one of the things I do with Charter Commission meetings is have these seminars, have these roundtable discussions where we bring experts in to talk about things. And one of the issues would be representation. I've already started thinking about it in light of the testimony that came up this evening. But so I want to maximize the number of nights that we can meet during the course of the next few months, because you're going to find once we flip into the next year, the days are going to go by pretty quickly. So I think, I'll be happy to talk about those kinds of things. And you'll have a sense of it, and we'll have a better sense after we hear from the mayor and the council as to what some of their priorities are as well.
Yeah, I thought the panels last time were enormously helpful to kind of hear how some other people have not only how they were doing things, but how they in many of the instances went from the way it was to the new way and how they navigated that. So if we can arrange that again, I thought it was a valuable use of our time.
Would agree.
Sorry I wasn't there tonight.
Oh, understandable. Okay, so others, I will check in with the city folks and make sure we can get in here or another suitable room that can accommodate us for the 13th. Did anybody have any questions for Steve or questions about the process or Doug?
What I'd like to know, can we ask tonight for some information for our next meeting? That being, if we're talking about minority, since it came up.
Yeah.
Can we start getting some background information on minority representation? Can we get some information historical for Norwalk? Because I started looking back, because a couple of you mentioned about trying to get more council people, the number, the larger aspect. I went back to 1979, which I could find online. Population of Norwalk was 79,000, but I don't know what year they changed, because the council got bigger too at some point.
Okay.
So I'd like to find out literally the year they changed the council and expanded it, and what was the population of Norwalk at the time? So we can get a little bit of a correlation where we should be. Do I think 200 and whatever they said was one town? That's a bit much.
Greenwich has.
Yeah,
has
that's a bit much. That's town representative. That's real. It's an RTM. It's like Westport too, right? That's the same thing. Yeah. But certainly like to get some historical data that kind of makes sense here. Give us a guide.
And also while we're at it, I guess the Board of Ed apparently was 25 years ago had minority representation. What changed on the Board of Ed other than the doing away with minority representation? Was there any at-large seats on the Board of Ed when it had minority representation, and when it switched to in-district or a hybrid in-district and at-large? Is that when they did away with minority representation? As well as all the cities and towns that have minority representation, whether those cities or towns are similar in that they are all either at large or all in district and don't have a hybrid situation like we do, which theoretically ought to take into account. It should give everyone a chance to become, to be elected, because it's not, the vote is not all either at large or in district. So if we can get some information on that, that would be great.
Happy to do it. It's funny. One of the ways I ended up coming to Norwalk is I put Tom Livingston on a panel in Hamden to discuss your system, your hybrid system. There's only Hamden has a hybrid. What I mean about a hybrid is districts and at large.
Yeah.
Danbury has, I think, hybrid, and Norwalk has hybrid. Those are the three cities that have hybrid. I think Hamden, and I'll look at Danbury. Hamden has minority party representation in the at-large component. You are permitted under state statute not to have minority party representation if you have districts. The theory behind that is that the districts should give minority parties opportunities to get elected in a neighborhood, basically. And there's very few at-large systems left. Waterbury, but we'll talk about. I'll do a little grid for you, but it'll be relatively easy to put together.
Steve, are you involved with the redistricting? I think you are, right?
I am, yes.
Do you have any idea when that might be completed?
No, the night before. It's the reason I can't do the Tuesday, the 12th, is that they're going to be approving it on the 12th.
It's a council.
They just approved the ordinance at 6 o'clock. That's the why I'm not there. They had the 6 o'clock meeting. They approved the ordinance. They have all the meets and bounds. They have a map that lays it out, and ready to go. It'll be approved in a week from Tuesday, and it will start taking effect for the 2025 election for the council and the 2027 election for the Board of Ed. They're on different cycles. And so the Board of Ed districts won't be elected by the new districts until 2027. And the council will have the new districts take effect for the 2025 election.
Well, I asked for the obvious reason. I mean, I think, you know, once we know what construct that is, that would help us, I think, with whatever we want to do with the charter, working with the districts.
Yes. Okay.
Ed, just a little background, when there was around when we changed the Board of Ed around. It used to be 2 Republicans would run, 2 Democrats would win. They'd win one year. The following year, it was only 3 get elected because it was a 7-member board. So 2 Republicans would run and 2 Democrats.
Staggered terms.
And, yeah. The off years. It was kind of like the fait accompli every year. That's where a little frustration came in, like, this is rigged.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Definitely looked at it.
Well, not that it was, no indication that it ever was. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
you said 2
that's why the
Democrats.
Council decided to try and follow a little bit what the council did. We're trying to have some district representation because some people have more issues going on with schools, et cetera, than other at the time. They went to the hybrid, that's why.
But like when you said 2 Republicans would run or 1 Democrat or whatever, would they run unopposed? In other words, it was just a Republican running and that's the end of it? Or was
Public
it?
would nominate two members, the Democrats nominate 2 members, and there was four positions open, done.
Oh, I see. So. it was-
Yeah, I know.
So,
Yeah.
so in effect, it was rigged. There was sort of a
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah.
that that's the way we go.
That's what I meant by that. It's just like,
used the word
I see.
every 2 years,
Did I hear rig?
they're 4 years. Yeah, I'm sorry. Here we go. I'm already in trouble.
Move to strike, move to strike,
And-
Attorney Madnick.
And every other year, there'd be, because it was 7 seats,
Yeah.
you know, that's.
Did you say rigged or
kind of what the
rigid?
Majority was. Yeah.
Was it rigid, you said,
Just
Mr.
move your
Vice
hair
Chair,
back
or
a little
rigged?
bit, you'll know that it said
Right
rig.
here.
Well, it was rigid and also rigged.
Ah,
Yeah.
double down.
Got it.
Like Tanya and see if she has anything because she's sitting there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hi, Tanya.
No, I'm listening, taking it all in, and I was actually intrigued about how the Board of Ed did their selection. I can understand being a part of the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
While we don't want to go back.
When we,
To that system.
there was a time, and there was a time before Mayor Rilling became mayor that we had 20 years of Republican mayors in the course of 24 years. And the city council was pretty much, divided, evenly. I think the democratic process is just working. And I think that, that's my opinion. Because people are making are voting, and we do live in a majority rule country, except in the Electoral College. And it's
And the US Senate, and the
Move
US
to
Senate.
strike.
yeah, and the US Senate, exactly, right? Because you have Wyoming with 700,000 people having 2 senators, and California with 50 million having 2 senators.
Exactly.
So except nationally, pretty much our democracy has worked.
Steve, do you have any examples of like the rating system? I think someone brought up, I think it was Tanner, he was talking about like changing
Ranked
how things
choice?
are elected. Yeah, ranked choice. Do you have any
Yeah,
examples of
but-
that happening in other towns?
No, as Commissioner, the point I was trying to make earlier is I think Tanner raised a very good compelling point with his proportional representation, and I brought up ranked choice. Those are not permitted in Connecticut at this point. Maine has it, Alaska has it. There are different states that now are moving in that direction. And the Secretary of State has a task force. I was with her in September at a conference, and I think they're going to be reporting sometime in December or January on what they think should be done in Connecticut with regard to ranked choice voting. So it doesn't, happy to do whatever you'd like on that, but it doesn't pay for us to spend a lot of time on it since we can't do anything
If
about
it's
it
not
at this moment.
permitted, it doesn't make
It's not
sense to you
permitted.
then.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Actually, Stephen, I was just appointed to that committee also.
Oh, good.
Maybe I can
Good.
bring some good news back or bad news back.
Yeah. My sense is that the approach will probably be to find a couple of pilot communities as opposed to making it legal statewide. They will probably find a couple of pilots. I know Hartford's been wanting to do it for years. I've been through 5 charters in Hartford, and Ranked Choice started about 3 charters ago where they really wanted to do it. So I think Hartford, I'd be shocked if Hartford didn't get one of the pilots. That's my guess, is that before you see it statewide, you'll see a few pilots, see how it goes, and
I
see whether
attended one
people are
meeting.
comfortable with the system.
I attended one meeting and that was the direction that it was gonna go.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, it's my understanding that New York uses ranked choice voting for primary elections. Do the other states that you mentioned use it for elections other than primaries?
Well, ranked choice, Commissioner, I don't know the answer to that. But one of the things about ranked choice, I'm trying to think of the Alaska. Remember the most famous ranked choice election was where Palin, who everybody thought was going to be a shoo-in for the House of Representatives, ended up losing the House seat to Mary Peralta, I think is her name, who's now running for re-election because of ranked choice voting. And I think that there were multiple candidates in that race. You know, we don't have runoffs in Connecticut or anything like that. It's whoever gets the most votes wins. So there's merit to a lot of these alternatives. I'm not poo-pooing any testimony from this evening, but I'm not sure how it works. I haven't studied it enough because we can't do anything about it, so I haven't paid a lot of attention to it in terms of the mechanics.
Can't do it yet.
Can't do it yet. Yeah, that's correct.
Do we expect the council people at the next meeting then? Is that what that's?
I think at the meeting on the 19th.
The 19th.
Was that was the next one we had scheduled, and I think they were gonna join us at that one. So the meeting on the, what did we just say, the 13th? The 13th will be just us, no guests.
Yeah.
Anything else, John?
I would just add, throw in public comment into the agenda for the 13th. Just on the outside chance somebody, wanted to come attend this evening and couldn't.
I would have, I gotta check the notice.
Okay.
On that. I don't know if we had a public, I suppose we could have a public comment. We couldn't call it a public hearing.
Right.
I think we're already past public participation.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can have public comment at every meeting, any meeting you want, but
Okay.
you need to put it in your special meeting notice. You can't amend the agenda, so it should be in your, if you want it for the 13th, you should put it in the agenda for public
Yeah,
comment.
So we'll have public comment. Do you?
Because as you recall, the 3 of you may recall, I think we had public comment at every one of our meetings.
Yeah.
And so there was
Yeah,
no lack of public engagement throughout the process. It was somewhat limited because you had business to do. Yeah.
I would claim there's no lack of public engagement opportunity. I would like to see more public engagement given the opportunities. But if wishes were horses, whatever.
I would tell you, I thought about this the last time and others as well. And this is not a proposal, this is just something for everybody to think about. Because of lack of media that we have in this city and notifying people of meetings. And, the turnout tonight was pretty much, I could have written it down on a piece of paper and won a door prize. But the possibility, and I don't know if this ties back into the districts, it could not. But I would like to see us be able to move this meeting around perhaps into some of the neighborhoods. In other words, into a district or a meeting place where people could get to that's closer to where they live than to come down here. Just opens the doors for somebody that says, well, I don't want to drive down to City Hall because I don't know what the traffic's like. I mean, you know what I'm saying. And if it's closer to where they live, perhaps maybe we get 3 or 4 more people. I don't know.
No, Carl, I think it's an excellent idea. In fact, maybe we could get the taxing districts maybe to sponsor.
Good idea.
the meeting. I mean, since they're part of the discussion, they keep coming up. Let the third, let the second, let the first do something, and the sixth too. That would get roll eight, and then we just have to figure out the northern part of NOAA. You know, maybe Silver Mine Association would want to sponsor it.
I was gonna say the fire department out of Connecticut Avenue has a nice
That's
meeting
what we
room
do.
that we've used in Golden Hill. It's
Yeah.
a nice space.
Yeah, any of those kind of places to be open to the public where there's obviously one parking and
They have
two place to
parking,
meet, so.
exactly.
Or the third wants to meet here, but they let them push a little with their, because they have a means of getting out with their bills and that kind of stuff, a notice. Some kind of.
Yeah, that we looked at, I think, last time, I'm looking at Trevor here. We tried to tap into some of the other veins in the community, like the RTC, the DTC. But if we could even go lower than it in some other committee meeting structures that have ways of communicating with members on their committee, that might help also. But I've always thought moving the meeting around a little bit could help.
I think it's, I like the idea. I would have to maybe just look to see if it's allowable. I mean, if we're having a commission meeting, can it be a on a traveling roadshow thing, or does it have to be at a specific, at this specific?
You notice that it's handicap
Hooked up
accessible,
for-
you're good.
Yeah,
Yes, that's right.
can I handle the online?
I used to do that with the council.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. I mean, we,
I'd like to see that again.
any suggestions for how to reach more people, I think are welcome, so.
But I think, you know, what Doug said and I was talking about, as long as it's handicap accessible.
Yep.
get hold of it.
Internet accessible.
Internet
and online.
handicap accessible because we have put it out there, we would use Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
Excellent.
We have, for those who are so inclined, we'll get you home for first pitch.
Yeah, it doesn't start till 8 o'clock.
Unless anyone has anything else.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned from Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Steve, thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye-bye.